Hello, dear perceptive souls. This is Bevin Niemann. I am one of the co-founders of 1,000,000empaths.com, a global community for empaths, lightworkers, and mystics. So welcome to your Friday collective energy reading. And the theme that wanted to come forward today that I saw all over social media, out in the public, just sensed in through the intuitive readings that I do, was shame. Right? So shame, it's a really intense emotion that we feel. It's something that every human being experiences. And, a lot of times it's something that causes us to feel this deep sense of unworthiness, right? Like whatever we did, whatever we said, was absolutely unacceptable. We have to hide it. We have to try to mask something that occurred. Either that or that's self-shame, or we go out and we're shaming others, which means that person's horrible. They're horrific. I can't believe they did that. And I've seen a lot of this out there in the collective recently, and I just wanted to get on, share a few cards with you, and just kind of vibe about shame, because it's something that I've dealt with in my own life, and I know that you've probably dealt with this as well. So there's the process of feeling ashamed, is really a message that somewhere we're out of integrity, right? So we have done something, we have said something that is out of our character, outside of our value system. Maybe we were triggered at that moment. Perhaps we were just unconscious. I've done and said a lot of things when I was just kind of living without a conscious awareness of how I was showing up. And, then we hold this shame about it, and maybe even guilt. They kind of go hand in hand. And we look at it and we say, I can't believe I've done that. I can't believe I was that kind of person. I can't believe that, that I would exhibit that kind of behavior. And we sort of push this aside. We push it down. We try to pretend like it's not there, repress it as much as possible. And this happens to every person. We all have these things, right? Where at some point in our life, we were out of integrity. Then there's the shame, because we feel like some way of being that we have is not acceptable to greater society. Whether that's you feel ashamed because you don't have enough money. I dealt with this as a child. I grew up, and lived with a single parent for a number of years, and we didn't have hardly 2 cents to rub together. And so I had this deep shame once I realized that some of my friends and their families had more financial wealth than we did. I really, it held on to me for a long period of time that, there was something wrong with me. There was fundamentally, I was less than other people. This can happen because of our body shape. It can happen because of our gender, our sexual orientation. It can happen for a lot of different reasons. Many of the reasons are things outside of our control. And yet we still feel ashamed about the job that we have, and it's not a high enough status, and these kinds of things. And so there's some societal pressure that can happen with this as well. And then there's the shame, as I mentioned in the beginning, where other people sort of put the shame on someone else. This happens a lot with parenting. There is no owner's manual for parents, and I've never been a parent, but I know that this is something that can happen, where parents say, you should be ashamed of yourself, and they put that child down, and they're trying their best, I think, to give them a lesson, but the way they're delivering it is really detrimental and really hurtful. And so we all have this emotion. We all feel it. A lot of times it feels like just a nasty feeling in the pit of your stomach, when you feel this shame about whatever it is that you're going through, and or that you've experienced in the past. And you just want to hide from it. You just want to pretend like it's not there, right? And so what I've learned in my own experience is that it's so important just to be present to it. Just be present, right? Just go, oh, this is coming up for me. I wonder what the message is. Is this a message about a place where I'm out of integrity? Maybe I need to make some adjustments. And it's okay to feel that temporarily. It's not a problem. It's just an emotional message, just like any other message, just like anger, even like joy, happiness. Contentedness, depression, all these things, all these emotions that we have, there's actually nothing wrong with having the emotion. Where it becomes difficult for us is when we hold on to it and we retain that and we continue to sort of stay in that place. And then it becomes a toxic level of shame and not just a temporary piece. So if you've done something or said something that was out of integrity, it happens to everyone. And, really the first thing to do is just to be present to it and go, yep, that's what happened. And I don't need to beat myself up over and over and over. I need to realize I was a human being. I was a damn human being, and I did the best I could. And now I'm getting this awareness and I'm going to do better. And the next step is to say you're sorry. It's just as simple as that. I'm sorry that I said this thing. I'm sorry that I was insensitive to your needs. I'm sorry that I disregarded you. I'm sorry that I didn't follow through the way I said I was going to. Whatever that is, we just need to own it, if it was something we actually did wrong. Now, where shame is related to societal norms and values that are outside of our control, this is where we have to do a little bit more work. This is where we have to dive in a little deeper, right? This is where we, really need to hold compassion for every person. And, we need to understand that everyone is diverse, right? So if it's like everyone is the same, income level, everyone's the same skin color, everyone's the same sexual orientation, everyone is the same, gender. Well, we're not, right? We look like this. We look like this as human beings. The animal kingdom looks like this. We're meant to be diverse. So this idea that there's some kind of normal that we have to conform to, everyone doesn't have the same body shape and the body size. Some people are tall and lanky and some people are short and curvy like me. So when we hold on to shame because of some perception of a societal norm, this is where we can be present to it and go, that's actually not healthy for me to do that. It's not healthy for me to do that. And if other people are trying to hold us to that, we can stand up, use our voice and say, that's not healthy. This is actually how we look, right? This is how we look as human beings. We have this diversity, and we're not accepting that you're trying to put something on me that is not acceptable. This comes up a lot for highly sensitive and empathic people because we think somehow we have to conform to a norm of how we perceive the world. If you're empathic and intuitive, you perceive the world in a different way than the majority of human beings. It doesn't mean we're superior. It just means that we perceive things differently. And so what I invite you to do is to release the shame that you have this really deep inner world, that you think and process things more slowly and more thoroughly than other people, that you have an emotional connection and intensity to a lot of things that are happening. Those are actually your normal. And it's okay if it's not the rest of everyone's normal. There's neurodiversity, there's emotional diversity. So I don't really know that there is actually a normal. And when we realize this, then we can release those shame factors that are related to some kind of perception of a societal norm. What I saw a lot this last week were people getting on and shaming each other. And this has become a regular occurrence on social media. And it really is disturbing to me because, yes, we get angry if other people don't have the same worldview as we do, if other people don't vote the same way that we did, if other people don't feel the same way that we do about things. And that doesn't mean I don't believe that we should stand up if someone is being hurt, oppressed, imprisoned, subjugated. This is not acceptable. Those are things where we absolutely have to say this is unacceptable. If someone has a slightly different worldview than us, a slightly different perspective, and we have literally 8 billion different realities that are being played out on this planet all at one time, because every single person filters the world through their own lens. And for us to go, I can't believe you did this, and why didn't you vote like that, and how come you don't treat people this way, and how come you don't do this? it doesn't seem to be getting the conversation anywhere. It just sort of blocks and shuts down, because you know how you feel when you experience shame. I know how I feel. I feel like I just want to contract my energy in, and it feels really uncomfortable. And so that's what happens when we blame someone else and we shame them for what's going on, and we tell them they're a bad person and they're wrong and all these things. That doesn't bring us together, doesn't promote any kind of unity consciousness. And we are moving from this old polarity of the Piscean era into the age of Aquarius. And, the Piscean era is the duality. It's the duality. It's between this and that, male and female, black and white, all these things. And we're moving into the Aquarian age, which is all in one big pot. It's Aquarius, the water bearer. And it's like, how do we start to move ourselves from where we've been so divisive and so divided into this unity consciousness? It is an uncomfortable and rocky road. And we can make those choices, so how do we get out and start listening to each other? How do we try to understand someone else's perspective? Are there people who are just mean and nasty and they want to hurt others? Absolutely. I really believe the majority of human beings, though, are just trying to do the best they can. And I had this conversation with someone online today, which is that, she was talking about, well, I can't believe that people are so self-centered. I said, well, isn't it that everyone is kind of self-centered? Because every single human being at the core, we are animals, and we're instinctually wired to survive. Aren't we all somewhat self-centered? Like, we're trying to get our needs met. We need to have shelter. We need to have food. We need to, have the things that we need. So to shame someone for doing that thing, which is their animal instinct, is kind of counterproductive. How do we start to bridge the gap? How do we start to open up these conversations? How do we kind of find middle ground? And if we continue to point our finger towards others, or we continue to shame ourselves, I don't think it's going to be very helpful for us to be able to move forward as a global society. So this is where forgiveness heals, and forgiveness is that thing, and you've probably heard people talk about it. It's where we say, I don't necessarily agree that the behavior that you enacted was acceptable. I'm not saying it's like fine for you to treat me this way. I know with sensitive people, particularly, a lot of us have intersected with those who are further on the narcissistic scale. And it doesn't mean that anyone who's ever hurt you, verbally abused you, physically abused you, sexually abused you, it doesn't mean that any of that is in any ways acceptable. Hurting other people is not. Where we get to this place where we say, I understand that person did that thing because they were wounded. And then I don't want to hold all of that in my heart, right? I don't want to hold all of that in my heart. And this is a personal choice, and it takes whatever length of time it takes for each person. Some people are able to let go and to forgive very easily, and other people it takes years, and for some things you may not be able to, and that's okay as well. But this is a part of the shame cycle, is learning how to, if you can reach this place, if you can come into this place of honoring yourself and striving for forgiveness, striving towards that as a goal, things can get better. And what we learned with shame is that whatever we've done, whatever thing that we're embarrassed about, whatever thing we think is so horrible and horrific that if anyone ever found out, I would be mortified. I would be ruined forever. There's just a bunch of human beings who've done the same exact thing. We have these patterns and these, uniform paths. Maybe there's 100 of them, maybe there's 200 of them. And these people have all done this thing, and it's not you. You're not the only one. You're not alone in this. And so what we say is that it's a new day. As soon as you have this realization, you feel ashamed about a place where you were out of integrity. You go, okay, today I'm going to change that. I'm going to let the sun rise. I'm going to enjoy the green grass. I'm going to do something differently. I'm going to change the way that I interact and intersect. If I was shaming others, I can start a new day, and I can say, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. And that's been part of my commitment, is that, during this, especially this last election cycle in the United States, I was very intensely involved in getting people out to vote and talking about the issues. And in some of that, I engaged in some of that shaming of other people, making them wrong for their perspective. And, like I said, it was okay to stand up and say that these things are hurtful. But there's a difference between saying these things are hurtful and you're a horrible person for believing this or for supporting this. And it's just so important for us to say, okay, if it's a new day, what am I going to commit to? How am I going to release and not add to the shame that's already out there in the world? The shame is a certain vibration. And we get into this loop and it gets held in the body. I mean, people get sick from holding in shame. And it's been a long journey for me to be able to come out and talk about all kinds of things that I've experienced in my life. And I'm like, I just keep telling myself, I have nothing to be ashamed about. Because I did what I did, I said what I said, I made the choices I made because that was the level of consciousness I had at the time. And guess what? That is true for every other single human being. That's true for all of us. And so, wherever this is coming up for you, those of you that are watching live or catching the replay, just sense into, do you really want to hold that anymore? I mean, can you be present to it, face it, look at the underlying root cause of what brought that shame up in the first place, say you're sorry if you need to make it right, work on forgiveness, hold compassion for yourself and others, and start a new day. And be conscious of the vibration that you're actually putting into the collective, that you're actually putting out into the collective of your family system, the collective of your community, your workplace, the places you volunteer, the causes you care about, the collective of the world, what you're doing out on social media and this global platform. Just being conscious and starting over and saying, I feel that shame doesn't really have a place in my own life anymore, or the way that I intersect with other people. And let's see what changes. Let's see what changes as a result of many more people starting to make these commitments towards actually practicing unity consciousness. In the spirituality field, we talk about oneness, we talk about unity consciousness. How are we practicing it? How are we practicing it in how we speak to ourselves within, how we look at ourselves as a part of the oneness, as a vital part of the oneness, a divine spark of source consciousness? How do we look at everyone else as a divine spark of source consciousness? And how do we move forward into this new era together? So I thank you, my friends, for showing up for this live and for connecting with me. I invite you to take a look at the description box if you're interested in anything that I offer in this area, the 1 Million Empaths community, personal work, and so forth. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful weekend, my friends. Bye-bye.